No, I didn't. No, I could take that back because sometimes it was my mum that told me, but she didn't know. She was, she was brought up in that same culture of like also being confused with these stories that had fear based.
So my grandma used to tell us stories about the war because she came from Poland, and yeah, they were quite frightening. She told us about that she was little, and when she had to get milk, there were dead people on the streets.
Yeah, I used to always cry. Like I think my mum used to make me cry just on purpose to tell me that story. But it was, but I asked her, "Why are you telling me the story?" She said, her mother told her that story.
Predominantly, my memory would be about the stories of King Arthur. And interestingly, again, if I'm really honest, those stories were directed to my brother. They were about heroes, they were about men. I kind of clicked onto Merlin being the wizard or being a magical man. I have memories of that. But it created more fear in me than intrigue.
I think the story of Judy in Seven Little Australians had a really big impact on me. But I just loved her, and I was heartbroken when she died. It never occurred to me that she would die in the end of the book, and I couldn't believe that the author would kill her off.
I think when I was a kid, my parents would always tell me about things like witchcraft, which was quite weird. But as children, we believed them. They were quite terrifying. They used to tell us who certain witches were, supposedly in their eyes, and then told us not to look at these certain people in their eyes. They're all nonsense stories, but I think they're stories that are passed down from generation to generation to them, so they believe them, so they expected us to. And I think I believed it for quite a while, and then as you become a fully grown adult, you're like, this is rubbish. But I think it was really to put fear in us, ultimately.
And then like the old man would always curse at like the world and curse at the, like the sky and things. And then, like he was always just not in like a really good state, I guess. Like he'd come home afterwards and curse at the fact that it was raining. And my mum just said that, if you curse at how bad things are in terms of the rain or the stormy weather, then God will strike you down in terms of the clouds, like he got hit by like a spark or something like that and he died. That was apparently the story, so just not sure if it was just one told to scare me, basically.
Like I grew up in an Islamic family, even though I wouldn't call myself a Muslim, but I was in that environment, and I would hear a lot of stories about religion, and sometimes I would get confused. They would tell me stories, and I would say, what does God look like, or who created God, and that would make people get angry. And I would get confused, you know what I mean?
The stories that we get stuck in, and I find it really interesting because some stories are useful to us and some stories really define who you are.
You behave differently, you're just not yourself because you've been preempted to believe that horrible things can happen, and yeah, it's kind of weird, it's weird. And the thing is that they knew no different, so they're obviously going to tell you this because they've been told it. So it's literally generational torture.
As bad as that might sound, it's more looking out for, particularly in my daughter's case, I don't want her to grow up to be self-obsessed or think that fame is something to aspire to.
I know that these things affect. I know that they create deep-rooted beliefs of insecurity and self that end up with the challenges of caring for adolescent girls. Their body image, their self-confidence, their understanding of what their future and their value base is within relationships.
Really teaching our young ones how to be warmongers and how to be bullies and how to be victims. It really isn't a good role model at all for our future generations.
I would be asking parents, adults, educators, to take a step aside from the narrative of the story on its surface. And what we need to be asking ourselves is, what is the core message? And in my experience, most of the stories are about control. They're about setting very clear gender stereotypes. They're about saying if you're a good girl or if you're a good boy, good things will happen. If you're not, there is always a character or somebody who is usually short, fat, ugly with warts that will in some way punish you for not playing the game.